Hey everyone, Simon here. Today I want to go ahead and discuss a crazy situation that happened to me with one of my tenants. I actually had a tenant who stopped paying rent, and this video goes into how I handled the situation with my tenant. As you guys know, the CARES Act put a freeze on tenant evictions. Having tenants in San Francisco or the Bay Area, which is California, is one of the worst places for your protection as a landlord. So the rules are always in the tenant's favor already. With the CARES Act, I cannot evict, or a landlord cannot evict tenants. My tenants have always been high quality tenants. I usually get tenants that have excellent credit scores, excellent, reliable jobs, either with the government or with reputable companies, and there are plenty of reputable companies around here. A few days ago, I get contacted by one of my tenants who's been a great tenant, never paid anything late, never any issues from this individual. They let me know that they were not able to pay rent because he had been recently laid off from his job. As a landlord, my obligation is to listen and to figure out a possible scenario that will be a win-win situation with myself and the tenant. I wanted to make sure I heard all of the scenarios possible to figure out a solution. At the same time, I'm aware that I'm not able to kick this individual out during this CARES Act. I also don't want to piss off my tenant and have him trash my place while we go to war. So how did I handle this situation?
Hi, Pearl. You don't have to raise your voice.
You pay you!
I can give you half.
You pay!
Don't talk to me like that, okay?
I'm tired of this crap!
Look, I thought I was clear in my email that I needed a couple weeks.
I work too hard!
Before I go into that, hit the like button and subscribe if you like my videos. It helps me a lot. It actually motivates me to keep making more videos for you guys. So please take the time right now to hit the like button, subscribe, and know that I appreciate it. The first thing I wanted to do was to determine what my tenant can actually pay me. So I asked, what can you pay me per month? Originally, the tenant was paying me $3,200 for a 2-bedroom apartment in San Francisco. That is extremely cheap in this area. So you're thinking, wow, $3,200 for a small 2-bedroom? That's actually a really good price. For example, I have another unit that I'm charging $4,600 a month for downtown San Francisco. It's 680 square feet with a patio. It's a condominium or a luxury condominium, and the individual's paying $4,600 a month with a 2-year lease. So posing that question, what can you pay me if not $3,200? The tenant responded, nothing.
I'm broke, nigga, I'm broke!
Even though the value of the property grew a lot, and we're talking possibly over $1 million since I've owned the property, it still does not mean that I'm not entitled to my money or that I don't have a mortgage or it's not important. That contract, that money is due to me, and the CARES Act does not eliminate what that individual owes me at the end of that contract. They are not getting 1 year free rent with the CARES Act. It simply helps people get back on their feet or avoids a landlord evicting that individual, which is never my goal to begin with anyway, because I like that tenant, I like what they're about, their mentality, and they've been a great tenant. So I don't want to go shopping for a new tenant that could potentially be a bad apple. I understand this individual got caught in a situation that was not his control. And always getting high value tenants or tenants with excellent credit, I always know that that tenant still wants to do right by me to avoid having a negative on their credit. My second question was, is your job loss temporary or permanent? I am trying to make a determination whether this individual still has a job to come back to in a month or two or at the end of the year, or this could be a long drawn out process that I may not see money coming back to me. Luckily, the tenant responded that he's, 1, looking for new work, and 2, the company did agree to bring him back once the coronavirus or pandemic that everyone is sick of gets out of the way and things resume to some normality. Granted, he's in the tech industry. I understand with a big company, they will resume. Companies like Apple and Facebook and so forth are not going anywhere. So there should be no issue. If this individual was perhaps in a restaurant industry or an industry that took a big hit that may not recover right away, I would be more worried. In fact, I may be more willing to get the tenant out of my unit knowing he is going to struggle coming back. Now, when I say these things, I'm not saying it because I don't have a heart or I'm inhumane. It's really simply a business discussion on how to manage tenants that may not be paying rent during these difficult times, yet still not be at a loss for your family and your income streams. When the tenant mentioned they got laid off, my quick instinct said, wait a minute, they're collecting unemployment. Right now, unemployment is paying individuals or some individuals more money than they were actually making while they were at their job. Up to $4,000 a month you could collect unemployment. With him and his girlfriend, they're actually able to collect up to $8,000 a month. He mentioned he is receiving benefits, but it's not $4,000, it's actually $3,500 a month. And his girlfriend is not receiving benefits because she has not been in the workforce for a long time. So now we got the baseline. That's what I really wanted to get to. $3,500 a month is what this tenant actually is getting. So he does have some income stream. My rent is $3,200 a month. That leaves us with a measly $300 for him to live off, which is not reasonable. And in the Bay Area, it's impossible. My next step was to determine what are the expenses of this tenant to see what is the maximum payment I can get out of this. When I asked the tenant, how much do you use for food and utilities every month? He mentioned about $500. This isn't my first rodeo with a tenant that's not paying or having a hard time paying, so I knew $500 was not enough. So I usually raise that by 10 to 20%, judging the tenant's responsibility. With him mentioning $500, that brings our baseline to $3,000. So if my rent is $3,200, he spends out of $3,500, $500. So we're left with $3,000. I'm in the negative $200 right then and there. So let's dig in further. I asked the tenant, what do you want to do? The tenant replied, hey, I want to go ahead and live here as long as I can. I also want to make sure I pay you back or get caught up on my feet. I like the place and I want to make sure I pay my rent and catch up. San Francisco's a very hot market. I could definitely have replaced the tenant if I wanted to, probably within a pretty good amount of time. However, as a landlord, you still need to calculate what amount of time is that unit going to be empty and how much that's going to cost you. So for example, if I did agree to terminate the lease early with this tenant, but it takes me 2 months to find another tenant, that is $6,400 I lost because of the transition. So do not jump to conclusions and do not let your temper get the best of you. Work it out with your tenant and tenants work it out with your landlord. When asking the tenant what he wanted to do, he mentioned he wanted to stay, but he did not have a solution. So I had to come up with a solution and take charge. As a landlord, you should always take charge or suggest things. And when you suggest things, just like any business discussion, they have to be suggested in your favor, but keeping in mind that the tenant still needs a reasonable solution. So I offered to have the tenant pay me $2,500 a month instead of $3,200 a month. That's a $700 savings, with the $700 balances prorated over the remainder of his lease term. This also gives the tenant $1,000 from his unemployment check to spend on utilities or whatever is necessary to keep his life moving forward. Because of this scenario, I then went ahead and took advantage of the CARES Act as well, and I deferred that mortgage payment for that unit so that I can catch up as well. This does not mean I'm taking his $2,500 and I'm spending it on renting a Lamborghini or anything like that. It simply means that I'm putting that money away, so when my deferment period comes up on that particular property, I have enough to pay my balances all down. My goal was to have the tenant know that I'm absolutely willing and there to work with him through this difficult time. As a good landlord, I think that is one of my responsibilities. As a good tenant, his responsibility is to catch up. It would be a lose-lose situation if the tenant and I went to war. That is what I wanted to avoid. But the main point is that we would both work it out. What I mean working it out, I still get my contracted money and he gets an opportunity to not have to look for a new place or worry about evictions, lawyers, or anything of that matter at all. My next question to the tenant was, how much time do you need to pay me back? The tenant replied, give me 2 to 3 months. Personally, I can can afford to have $700 less per month in this given situation. If I could not have afforded to carry over a $700 balance, then this would be a different scenario. But keep in mind, as landlord, you have a deferment as a right on your end during this difficult time. They don't want foreclosures, they don't want eviction. So you could take advantage of that. So technically everyone as a landlord can afford to defer a payment. It's not the smartest thing to do for anyone that could actually afford to pay, because you owe that balance at the end anyway. They're not forgiving these payments, but this gives you an opportunity for everyone to calm down and get back on their feet. The tenant I had is not a professional squatter. He is a professional in the tech industry. So I was confident that I would be able to work things out with him without having any issues whatsoever. And that kind of goes back to my real estate investing video, which I shared with you guys before, where if you buy in a great location, you're going to get a better quality tenant. With a better quality tenant, you always have a better chance of getting your money back. Okay guys, so here are my 5 important tips with tenants not paying rent, and as a landlord and tenant, how you should deal with it. 1. Work out the amount to be paid. As landlords, given the time period, you have to be reasonable with your tenant. 2. Determine your payoff period and make sure you set dates and amounts. Make sure both you and the tenant monitors your payments so that you guys are catching up and paying down the past due debt. 3. Landlords, please draft an addendum or a forbearance agreement that shows the new payment amounts for the duration of time so that there is nothing done verbally. In the forbearance agreement, make sure there's a bankruptcy clause as well, that you will still get your money back. Even if the tenant declares bankruptcy, you will actually be able to still collect on what they owed you in your contract for living there during that time and not paying. The forbearance agreement or the addendum to the lease also basically on paper shows that you guys have agreed to a different agreement in contract, so that if you ever sue the tenant, the tenant's lawyer can't come back and say, well, you were okay with accepting $2,500 payments or different payments across the board, which means you were okay with breaking that contract. So make sure in the agreement it clearly stipulates what you are supposed to collect, for how long, and what's due at the end. If a tenant is not able to pay you back or refuses to work with you entirely, work out an early lease termination if possible, so you can get a better tenant and get your money coming in again. Tenants, please be reasonable as well. Landlords may be relying on your payment to pay the mortgage, which they provide you a property to live in. Tenants, also know your rights. The landlord can't kick you out or threaten to do so. Landlords, if the tenant will not leave, will not pay, and will not work with you, immediately contact the lawyer. Although the state and federal law protects evictions during this short period of time, that does not mean your lawyer can't come up with something that would be able to extract some money from the tenant or potentially get them out of the house faster. As tenants, it's always good to have an excellent credit score, and as a landlord, I only look for tenants with excellent credit scores. It gives me that leverage to come after a tenant. It shows that the tenant is extremely responsible and cares for their financial responsibility. And that's exactly the good quality tenant I will always look for. Thank you guys for watching. I hope my story about the tenant not paying helped some of you guys out. If you like what you saw, please go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. I look forward to making more videos, and your like and subscription motivates me to do so in my busy schedule. By the way, guys, if you have any questions, please comment below and I'll be more than happy to answer them to the best of my ability and knowledge. Have a great day, and I'll see you guys here next time.